Last year, you stated a very important change in government will take place. And of course, we now know that Donald Trump won the U.S. election. What's his first year in office going to be like?
You know, Jeremy, it's interesting you bring this up because I am so impressed on the attention and the interest shown at my second home in Canada, because constantly I was being called by reporters and what have you. And by the way, I got to share you a story that broke just after the election day. I had predicted the last four elections. In the case of 2012, I never announced ahead of time my prediction. I dropped a strong box off to the Jimmy Fallon show on NBC. They put it in a safe, and it was 1.5 years before the election. But this year, I decided to stay clear of it because there's pictures of me on the internet with Trump because I performed in his home. There's pictures of me with Clinton because I do shows in Washington, what have you. So I thought, with all the argument, and you got to admit, Jeremy, it's been a kind of a dirty campaign of mine. I'm putting it mildly. But anyway, I said I'm going to stay out of this. But instead, 2 days before, I said, let me go through with it. I filed a letter with a reporter here in the States, and they put it in a store window, and 2 days after, I went to a television studio where they were going to open it and reveal what I had predicted. Don't you know, Fox Television contacted us and found out, Jeremy, it's on the internet, I'm not making this up, that on December 9th, 2015, 11 months before the election, I was on a Fox station show in Washington, D.C. because I was performing out there. And I was asked, who would win the next presidential election? And my answer was, I do know, but I don't want to get in trouble, Kreskin said. I've been in this house, the one that's been shouting all over, literally, that Trump was going to win. And Jeremy, I swear to you, I have no memory of ever saying it or doing that. And yet the video is there. Talk about a crazy turn of events. You know what I mean?
Well,
so even I, as a mentalist, can't always. I think, Jeremy, things are going to quiet down. You know what? And I admire. That's what I admire about Canada, and I also admire about this in England. How long do people, when they go on a political campaign, how long do they run for office in Canada? Was it a month or 2 months?
Yeah, a month or two. Not like the 10 years that it takes to be a president, eh?
That's exactly what you just quoted me. Not you say 10 weeks or 10. In this country, they're campaigning for 10 years, and you know what's happened as a result of this. They run out of things to talk about, so they have to dig into private lives, and it gets seamy and so forth. So the question I'm being asked, I've been asked in Canada, and I've been asked here, do I feel that they'll be able to get a terms of limit for campaign, because Canada limits it, England limits it, and my answer is no, and the reason why, not just the politics. Jeremy, the networks have made so much damn money on all this endless and so forth. Do you think they want it to end? Oh, my God, it's money, and that's what's keeping this thing going so dreadfully long. But I'll tell you one thing. You got to give us credit, Jeremy, and I think you folks will. We certainly had, in this campaign, the best sideshow since Barnum Bailey's Circus. Folks, I got to interrupt you, Joe. I got to say this, folks. I met Jeremy before. I know Jeremy. If I'm on the air with him in person, I dare not read his thoughts. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Don't read my don't read my thoughts. Right now, the amazing Kreskin joining us. The 2017 predictions. Give us some of those, amazing Kreskin. What's on your mind?
I'll tell you some interesting things. Which I tell you what's gotten everybody fascinated, and now I'm getting interviewed by people in Hollywood. Movies have changed, of course, and the amount of top movies or big movies are not as many as in the past. They're getting rehashed and what have you. I think it's due to happen. And I'm getting calls from people. A lot of people have left the movie industry. Writers are now writing in television because the movies, when you go to a movie today, you got to pay a top dollar, and you only see one movie. So the movies have to be 2 hours in length. And Jeremy, if you look at the history of movies, look at the 40s and 50s, Alfred Hitchcock movies were sometimes an hour and a half. Some of the best movies, some of the best comedies were an hour and 25 minutes because that was a tight story. Now they got to pad everything, and the movies some of them are getting excessively long and noisy and noisy and noisy. I predict that someone's going to have a stroke of genius and bring back double features, and I think it would be a blessing, Jeremy. The other thing I gotta tell you, because you're gonna they have poker contests in Vegas every year, and the international ones. And by the way, you college guys and gals listening to me, don't leave college to decide you're going to make poker your career. Ask me first who really pays for the running of casinos, and winners do not pay for the running of casinos, so don't get into that. But I predict next year, for the fourth year in a row, you didn't know this, Jeremy, for the fourth year in a row, one of the winners of the International Poker Champion will be named, as the press has 3 years in a row now. They've given them the nickname Kreskin. Isn't that neat? They gave the winner the name. But, Jeremy, I am not getting any commission from that person. Where's my interest in that, Jeremy?
You're from the Johnny Carson area, of course, appearing many times on The Tonight Show. For those of us that have never had the honor of meeting the legend, tell us the type of guy he was.
Jeremy, I did 88 shows with him. The records say 61, and this was never talked about publicly, but he was very, very bitter about it, and we understand in the early days of television they didn't put the value and so forth. It says 61 shows I did, actually I did 80 shows, but he was very bitter because, don't you know, NBC erased all of the first 2 years of his shows, all of them. So when that happened, and another man I worked with, Mike Douglas, who had a series. I did 118 shows with him. It happened with him, but he had. That's why Carson, if you ever hear about it, had all the shows after that, copies of them put in metal cases underground in California. He was a very quiet man, Jeremy. He could handle any audience, but if you were with him at a private party, so help me God, he'd be sitting in the corner of the room, the corner where the two walls come together in a chair, kind of fumbling, and maybe with a deck of cards, just up occupying himself, because it was just a different story with him then. He was. By the way, I will say, I got to tell you about him. In that show, when he was on the air, he heard every single camera cue, direction, everything. He heard everything that was going on and had a handle on all the stuff. So he was a remarkable person. And I want to tell you, I wish a lot of people, maybe with the Tonight shows in Canada and the States, would hear me. He did something that before him Steve Allen did, and Jack Parr and everything else. When he had a guest on, let's say it was some raging crazy comedian, and then he had another guest on, but that comedian was hot. He'd keep the guest on, and that comedian would stay on with the next guest. My God, there were nights when Sinatra was on, and who's the elderly insult guy that's been on for years? You know, that insults people on television and what have you. He's been on television for years. I'm not saying his name, but he'd keep the guy on, and Dean Martin would stay there because it became such a chemistry. And they remembered this. So a lot of times when they had shows in the future, they picked the same people to be on because of the chemistry. Today you have a situation in nighttime shows. The guest is on, he leaves, the next guest is on, he leaves. They're losing the quality, which makes show business even more romantic. You know what I mean, Jeremy?
Yeah. The amazing Kreskin joining us on the show this afternoon. Kreskin, social media, big aspect in entertainment these days. You recently did a Twitter Q&A with your fans. What's the most common question that gets sent your way?
The common question that's sent my way, that's very interesting, is, I'm going to level with you now and you can understand why. The most common question sent my way is, people from colleges will say, will I get a job and should I stay with the job? They don't even know what the job is. Will I get a job and shall I stay with the job? And my advice is to them, I don't care what the job is. I don't care if it's digging ditches. That might be a good thing to start with. Stick with it because it shows your records when you get a chance. And by the way, all of you guys and gals listen to me, folks. You learn more from your mistakes and failures than success. You rise above your failures, get another job and what have you, and finally when you are producing, then when someone looks at your record and said, this is the way I think, that many lack of successes, and now he's made this kind of success. She's made this kind of. I'll hire them tomorrow, because you know what I mean, Jeremy. They know how to rise over challenges.
Yeah.
But again, I will not read Jeremiah's thoughts if I'm in person with him on the air. No way. We got to save things, Jeremy.
The amazing Kreskin joining us. Kreskin, thank you so much for doing this once again, and we hope you come back to Alberta sometime.
I want to come back, and you keep in touch with me. And listen to me, Jeremy. When I come back, we'll get together. But at the same time, and I say this to all of you listening, and I not only wish you a Happy New Year, Jeremy, but in the spirit of broadcasting, Jeremy, I will not say goodbye to you. Let's just say to be continued. Okay, Jeremy?